The Democratic Party that I grew up with was the party that defended the most vulnerable people in this country. And today, the Democratic Party is the party of hatred and division.
Ask your co-panelist, Tulsi Gabbard, about trans people. Ask her if she thinks trans people are even real.
Roughly 50% of people in this country voted for Democrats, according to what we're told.
Now he's doing dog whistles for election deniers here. Come on, buddy. She's smirking too. She's smiling. They know they're lying. It's kind of like a little jarring to see him go just full shill. Friends, I know it's played out, but liking, commenting, subscribing really helps with the algorithm. So if you enjoy the new content, click those buttons for me, please. Anyways, here's Tulsi Gabbard and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. telling everybody why we should leave the Democratic Party. Okay, let's go into this with an open mind.
Speaking of fighting, Charlie Kirk has described this group of individuals that have now come together to support Donald Trump, which is, I think Avengers is a really good way to describe them. You all have superpowers. You're all uniquely talented. It's truly impressive. Why do you think that so many unique individuals, of course, including many that have been Democrats, both of you are those people, why have all of you come to support Donald Trump?
I am straight up not going to rule out the idea that Russia has really damning blackmail on both of these people. I can't tell you for sure if that's the case. I'm not even saying it's likely. I don't know what the percentage is, but did a guy named Dimitri show up at their house and show them a picture of them, you know, like torturing an animal or abusing a child? Maybe. I don't know. It's not 0%. That's all I'm saying. It's not zero. It's certainly not 0%. Is it 25%? I don't know. Is it 0%? No. No, it's not.
You know, pretty simply, we could go into, you know, the story about why I left the Democrat Party, but
whenever somebody says the Democrat Party, it's like this scene in Inglourious Bastards. This scene right here. Anybody that says the Democrat Party, they're using the term Democrat as a pejorative. It's the Democratic Party. Super partisan media pundits are the ones that constantly use the term Democrat Party. There's a couple reasons for that. Number one, they don't want to like cede the idea of democracy to Democrats, so they don't want to say Democratic. And number two, it's just as simple as this. It sounds more like the term rat. That's the genesis of this, of using that term. Is it sounds more similar to the term rat, which is why they say that. The reason why both of them left the Democratic Party, it's because that grift money is so good. They're both trying to springboard off of this into a place of like elevating their national profile, and ultimately it's just to make more money. That's all it is.
over 20 years ago when I joined the Democrat Party, it was once that big open tent. Democratic. What she's upset about is that the Democratic Party now is not as homophobic as it used to be. That's what this is. Her dad was a famous politician in Hawaii. Guy was a leader in the Democratic Party in that state. Virulently homophobic. She herself, there's quotes from her 20 years ago talking about the gay agenda. And that part of her has just never changed. And party that celebrated free speech, that stood up and defended civil liberties and civil rights. It was a party that welcomed people from all different backgrounds and recognized we can have agreements and disagreements on issues.
Are Haitians welcome in the Republican Party currently? Just checking.
But as we come together around our core principles in the Constitution and fighting for working people across our country, defending free speech, standing up for peace and prosperity for all Americans.
On that front, I think Trump alluded to bombing the shit out of Iran. Donald Trump threatens that he would bomb Iran's largest cities and blow the country to smithereens. That just came out today. So peace, prosperity, you know, the thing.
Those were the core ideals. But you fast forward to where we are today, and the Democrat Party, unfortunately,
Democratic Party
is completely unrecognizable. And so when we look,
I mean, it seems pretty recognizable to the party that it was just about 10 years ago, you know? We've certainly become more progressive in the last 10 years. It's a good thing.
Look at, you know, speaking for myself, why I've endorsed President Trump in this election and
money.
Why I will do everything I can over these next 44 days.
Opportunism, money. Money. It pays well. The grift pays well. I wonder how much he got paid for the speaking appearance. Probably minimum, I'm going to say 30,000, 40,000 maybe.
To encourage others to vote for Donald Trump, because really when we look at what is at stake, it is nothing short of our ability as Americans, regardless of political affiliation, to truly live and thrive in a free, peaceful, and prosperous nation. And I know in our conversation we'll go into a little bit more detail on that, but when we recognize that that is what is at stake, we also then must recognize that when we compare and contrast the record of Donald Trump as president, and we compare that to Kamala Harris's record as vice president, we see a record of success under Donald Trump when it comes to freedom, peace, and prosperity.
Very vague. She's being very vague here.
And we see a record of...
I will stack the Biden administration's record up against Trump's any day of the week. Any day of the week.
Failure when it comes to Vice President Kamala Harris, when it comes to tyranny, war, and economic hardship. In this election, the choice is very clear.
I agree.
And it doesn't matter whether you agree or disagree on...
I saw somebody on Twitter say that when RFK Jr. has an orgasm, it probably sounds like when the vacuum cleaner sucks up a quarter. And I just died. I could not stop laughing.
Some issues with President Trump. This is not about personalities. This is nothing short of our future and our freedom on the line.
RFK Jr., by the way, I mean, I don't know if you guys heard about his illicit affair with a New Yorker journalist named Olivia Nunzi, I think her name is. There's more to the story. Apparently, he was going around bragging that this journalist that was covering RFK Jr. last year was sending him nudes. I don't know if it was reported that he showed people the nudes, but he was bragging about it.
And President Trump is our best...
Apparently, also, he kept blocking and unblocking her. So he would block her and then unblock her because I guess he was too tempted to see the nudes. And then he would see the nudes and keep the nudes, and then he would block her again and then unblock her. That's what the reporting said.
Hope to defend that freedom, to defend our future, to walk us back from the brink of World War.
RFK Jr. is such a piece of shit that he cheated on his then wife. This was, I don't remember what year. This was 15, 20 years ago. Cheated on his wife with something like 36 women. Kept track of all the women that he was cheating on his wife with in a diary. His wife found the diary, and then he embroiled himself in a full-on custody war with his wife during divorce proceedings. She eventually ended up committing suicide because he had taken her kids away from her and accused her of being a violent alcoholic. RFK Jr.'s backstory is crazy.
War III and nuclear war so that we can...
And then during his eulogy that he was giving for her, he said during his eulogy for her that the last conversation that they ever had, she admitted that she was wrong about everything. That's what he said during her eulogy. What? What?
Live out that promise that the founders of our country had for every single one of us as Americans.
Tulsi and I followed the same evolution. She got awake.
RFK Jr. has a bit of an interesting evolution considering the fact that he reportedly called Kamala and wanted to talk about a potential cabinet position, and they didn't even take the call. And then after that, he went to the Trump administration to see, or the Trump campaign to see if they had any openings over there.
A little faster than I did. And I would add Elon Musk and so many other people to this list.
Do you mind?
I mean, we're talking about a guy who was an environmental lawyer who practiced law and fought, you know, giant corporations for environmental causes, who is now aligning himself with the Republican Party, who's led by a guy who says that climate change is a literal hoax. We're talking about a man who with no principles. There's no principles there. I'm a guy who, you know, a guy who dedicated his entire professional life to environmental causes and is now aligned with a political party that wants to deregulate environmental laws and just straight up denies global warming. It's just, you know, pretty crazy.
Bobby, how many former Democrats or independents, libertarians we got here in the room tonight? Awesome. Thank you. So you know what we're talking about.
There are dozens of us.
In the Democratic Party that we were raised in, The Democratic Party of John Kennedy or Robert F. Kennedy doesn't exist anymore. The Democratic Party that I grew up in was the party of peace. It was against war. My father died running against the Vietnam War. My uncle spent 1,000 days in office fighting.
I mean, John F. Kennedy was responsible for the initial buildup of troops in Vietnam. So this idea that he was just like this, you know, completely anti-war guy. John F. Kennedy greenlit the Bay of Pigs in Cuba. You know, like he wasn't just like, he wasn't strictly like fully anti-war, you know what I mean? He wasn't necessarily afraid to flex American might
against his military.
Of course, the Bay of Pigs failed spectacularly, and it was one of the most embarrassing things we ever did, but yeah.
Industrial complex, his intelligence apparatus to keep our country out of war.
The intelligence apparatus under JFK was led by J. Edgar Hoover, who, you know, was essentially a power above the presidency, you know. This is all just such nonsense.
It was
like the intelligence community now, the FBI now is way better than it was under J. Edgar Hoover.
Party of constitutional rights, of civil rights, including especially beginning with freedom of speech. It's now the party of censorship, and it's the party of war.
Well, you support a party that is quite literally burning books all over the country because they say it's dangerous for kids.
And, you know, Kamala Harris said
they're banning Stephen King books in libraries in Florida. Stephen King books, they're banning them.
In this extraordinary speech, as she did in front of the Democratic Convention, which was filled with this pugnacious belligerence, this promise to make America the dominating military power in the world. And this is what's got into...
excuse me, we already are, and it's base that we are. Hello?
Us all into all the trouble. Before her, immediately before she went on...
Having the strongest military in the world wasn't the thing that got us in trouble before. It was bad foreign policy decisions.
We had an ex-CIA director, Leon Panetta, speak at the Democratic Convention. This is not the Democratic Party that I grew up with. I would never do that. It was all kinds of military generals.
Leon Panetta was appointed by Obama, if I'm not mistaken, right? Who appointed Leon Panetta? Wasn't that an Obama appointee? In 2009, Barack Obama nominated Panetta to be the director of the CIA.
Speaking at that convention, the Democratic Party in recent days...
What are these people suggesting, by the way? Are they suggesting that we dissolve the CIA? Or are they suggesting that we dissolve the FBI? Would that make us safer? Would that make us a better country?
Including Vice President Harris, has touted the endorsements of Dick Cheney and John Bolton and 225 other neocons who have been...
It's worthy of touting. I mean, you guys have rallied behind a nominee in Donald Trump that has so thoroughly disgusted the former Republican vice president that he can't in good conscience vote for Donald Trump. I mean, that's pretty remarkable. That's pretty remarkable.
Endorsed Harris against Trump. Well, those people are the people who brought us the Patriot Act. They brought us the surveillance state. They brought us the censorship state. They brought us the torture regimen, the extraordinary renditions. They brought us the Iraq War, the biggest foreign policy debacle in the history of our country.
Debacle?
They have not. Dick Cheney has not changed his minds about those policies. None of them have. They still believe that those were all good things for our country. So when they endorse the Democratic Party, it's not because...
What's the insinuation that Kamala is going to be inaugurated and then we're going to invade some Middle Eastern country and destabilize the region again? Is that what the insinuation is here?
They've changed. It's because the Democratic Party has changed radically.
Donald Trump did not wind down our war machine abroad. He escalated our military operations in Syria. He escalated our military operations in Somalia. He escalated our military operations all over that region. This idea that he was like an anti-war president when his foreign policy with respect to the war on terror was literally just like, let's drop more bombs. Let's drop like 10 times more bombs. That was his foreign policy with respect to the war on terror. That's what he did. He did that. He dropped more bombs. He dropped more bombs in Somalia in his first year than Obama did in his entire 8 years. Look it up. Joe Biden, on the other hand, has substantially diminished our drone program. It's not like we don't drop any we don't do any drone strikes. That's not true. But I mean, he greatly diminished it to almost nothing. He essentially ended our drone war.
Our party was the party of tolerance, and today the Democratic Party is the party of hatred and division.
Okay, let's talk about Haitians. Are Haitians in Springfield welcome in your movement? Do you think Haitians feel welcome in the Republican Party right now? Do you think they feel loved?
And, you know, I have many old friends. Most of my old friends are Democrats. And
probably not friends anymore, to be honest.
I don't.
To be honest, they probably don't call them much these days.
I don't hate them because they're supporting Harris. I think they're wrong. I think it's a bad choice, but I don't hate them for it. I don't consider them deplorable, but they consider me deplorable.
Yeah. I mean, just for a number of other reasons completely unrelated to the election. Like what you did with your ex-wife was like disgusting. It's a matter of public record. So I think you were deplorable long before all this. But yeah, anybody like yourself who purports to be this guy who cares about the environment and then aligns yourself with Donald Trump, you made the environment the main crux of your professional career, and then you align yourself with Donald Trump? Yeah, that's deplorable. And Tulsi has been deplorable for decades, actual decades. She was railing against the homosexual agenda back in like 2003. She's always been
or supporting.
She belongs to a goddamn cult. She's in a literal cult, you guys. She is in a cult and no one talks about it. No one talks about it. Why is no one talking about the fact that she's in an actual cult?
President Trump, we ought to be able to talk with each other without hating
She's got those culty eyes too, you know?
Each other.
Literally just Google Tulsi Gabbard cult and you'll read all about it.
Democratic Party prided it.
She's got this like Hindu guru who's like super homophobic. You know, he's an actual cult leader.
Itself on being able to win debates and to be able to have conversations with journalists and enunciate a vision and defend their records. And now we have a Democratic Party candidate who won't go to unscripted interviews, who cannot explain her policies. You know, I like what Tulsi said about if you want to know the difference between the Democratic Party and the MAGA.
It's true. It's true. RFK Jr. does do unscripted interviews on news media. Let's watch this, guys.
So you have gained notoriety for your skepticism about vaccines. And over the summer in an interview, you said, quote, "There's no vaccine that is, safe and effective." Do you still believe that?
I never said that.
So stop me. We have the clip. Please play the clip.
Play the whole clip.
You've talked about that the media slanders you by calling you an anti-vaxxer. And you've said that you're not anti-vaccine, you're pro-safe vaccine. Difficult question. Can you name any vaccines that you think are good?
I think some of the live virus vaccines are probably averting more problems than they're causing. There's no vaccine that is, safe and effective.
Ooh, damn. He literally said those exact words.
So you did say it. Do you still believe it?
Well, here's what I would say. First of all, I'm not anti-vaccine.
How is that statement?
I'm not anti-vaccine. I'm not anti-vaccine. I just don't think there's a single vaccine out there that's safe and effective. But I'm not, guys, don't call me an anti-vaxxer. It's like, come on. These unfair labels,
Not anti-vaccine.
Well, I can say right now there's no medicine for cancer that's safe and effective. It doesn't mean I'm against all medicines. I've been fighting 40 years to get mercury out of fish. Nobody calls me anti-fish. What I want is vaccines that are proven safety. And what I meant, which was a bad use of words in this, none of the vaccines that are currently on the mandated schedule for children, the 72 vaccines, have ever been tested in a pre-licensing safety study. What that means is that we do not know. We do not know what the risk profile is for those products, and you cannot prove that or say with any scientific certainty that any of those products are causing.
So you're saying you still believe?
I mean, we have decades of data for these vaccines to demonstrate their efficacy and their safety. Decades and decades and decades of data for some of these vaccines, going back to like the 50s or whatever. Anyways, that was just like one of the funnier moments I've seen in an interview ever. I never said I was anti-vaccine. I never said that vaccines weren't safe and effective.
Movement. Look at the state of California.
Keep our names out of your mouth, good sir.
State that I live in now. This is a state that has the highest homeless rate. Half the homeless people in our country live in California.
Hold on. What state has the highest homeless population per capita? It's probably California, let's be honest. Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. comes in first, then New York, then Vermont, then Oregon, then California, according to 2023 data. So he's wrong about that. But to be fair, like, if you're going to be homeless in this country, wouldn't you want to be homeless in, like, California? I live in Southern California, okay? It's like 70 to 80 degrees 80% of the year, okay? It gets a little too hot for like a month or two. It gets a little cold, but like cold for me living in California, it's like 55 degrees out. And I'm like Jack Nicholson at the end of The Shining, you know? If it gets down to like 55, it's like, God damn, it's freezing out. But for the most part, it's between like 70 and 80 degrees pretty much all the time. So kind of makes sense that homeless people would gravitate towards a state like this.
To me, the greatest city in our country was San Francisco, and today it's a ruin. It is the state with the worst, second worst education. It's literally, it was the top education system in the country. Now it's 49th out of 50.
Well, you should be, because you are dirt. You make me sick, you big baby.
Now he's claiming that California is the second worst state in the country regarding education. Now I'm calling complete bull on that one. I have no idea where he's getting his data. He's claiming that California is ranked 49th out of 50th in education. I've never heard anybody make that claim. I have no idea where he got that claim.
There's 1 million people a year in California.
It's just not true. It's just not true.
Who are leaving the state. They have run out of U-Haul trucks.
I don't know if that, so I know a lot of people left California during like the COVID stuff. An estimate released in December by the U.S. Census Bureau said California's population fell by 75,000 in 2023. California did see degrowth during the COVID era and in the immediate aftermath of the COVID era. We topped out at 39,600,000 in 2019, and that dropped to 39,061,000. So that's a reduction over the next 4 years of about 600,000 people, more or less. But we saw our population increase in 2024. Now, does that necessarily mean that 1 million people didn't leave? I don't know where he got that. Fox 11 Los Angeles says overall 75,423 Californians left in 2023.
And Kamala Harris was instrumental in creating that situation. So the Democrats.
How do you figure Kamala Harris was instrumental in creating a situation where people were leaving California? How do you explain that? She was not president during COVID. Donald Trump was president during COVID during the first year.
The Democratic Party that I grew up with was the party that defended the most vulnerable people in this country. And today,
ask your co-panelist Tulsi Gabbard about trans people. Ask her if she thinks trans people are even real. Turn to your right, good sir, and ask Tulsi, hey, do you think trans people are real? And see what she says.
It's the party it's the party of the rich, the super rich. It was the party of the firefighters, the cops, of labor. We had this year.
We still are. A majority of people that make under $100,000 a year have consistently voted Democrat for decades.
This extraordinary inversion happening where
it's not happening. He's just making this up.
You had Sean O'Brien, who I talked to a few minutes ago.
That's one union. That's one union. Kamala Harris campaign has the vast majority of endorsements from unions.
Who's the head of the Teamsters union?
And the Teamsters didn't even endorse Donald Trump. They just chose not to endorse anyone.
And he told me to send his love to Donald Trump.
Donald Trump was on a Twitter space with Elon Musk where they were laughing about Elon firing union workers, people that were trying to unionize. They were laughing about it. They were laughing about it.
And while they had military leaders and the CIA leaders talking at the Democratic convention, you had Sean O'Brien, the head of the Teamsters union, talking at the Republican convention.
He requested to talk at the Democratic convention too, and they said no.
The Democratic Party When I was a kid, the Democratic Party owned very little money. It had usually the contributions were a half to a third of what the Republicans raised in presidential races. Today, it's a complete inversion.
Kamala Harris saw the largest days of grassroots fundraising in election history. In history, like 2 days in a row, the largest grassroots contributions, largest single days of grassroots contributions in political history.
In 2020, roughly 50% of these people in this country voted for Democrats, according to what we're told. And
now his crowd, I guess, is alleging voter fraud. What did he even say just here?
What we're told, roughly 50% of these people in this country voted for Democrats, according to what we're told.
Now he's doing dog whistles for election deniers here. This is, man, come on, buddy.
And roughly 50% voted for the Republicans.
Look at that, she's smirking too, she's smiling. They know they're lying. That's the thing. They know they're lying about this.
But the 50% who voted Democrat owned 70% of the wealth in this country. The 50% who voted Republican owned 30% of the wealth. And if you look at the campaign finance, I was looking at the reports for both parties on the way over here tonight, and the Democrats have outraised the Republicans 2-1 or 3-1 in this race.
Yeah, because our candidate's better. Can you imagine raising more money when your candidate is better and because people hate Donald Trump? The reason why Democrats are raising so much money is because they hate the candidate that you're backing.
And it's not because of enthusiasm. We got much bigger crowds than they do. We have much more intensity than they do.
That's not even true. She has given speeches in front of bigger crowds than Donald Trump for this cycle.
There are none of the surrogates for Vice President Harris who can put together.
It's kind of like a little jarring to see him go just full shill for the Republican Party. Really something, you guys.
A crowd like this, with 3,000 RSVPs, we got to this event. They can't do that. What they have is money. And this is the opposite.
I mean, this is just patently false. You know, she's been giving speeches in front of enormous crowds for the last 2 months. I mean, Hutch, there was also a near complete cutoff for Biden because the donors wanted him gone. Obviously, Kamala is going to do numbers as soon as Biden stepped out and Kamala stepped in. I mean, true, but still, the fact remains her candidacy, her campaign saw the largest influx of grassroots donations of any nominee in history.
This has become the party of the working class, of the working poor, of Main Street, of small business people. Kamala Harris's brother-in-law, who is her campaign manager or finance director, has taken leave of being the general counsel for Uber, one of the most anti-union, anti-labor organizations in this country. They are on the side of big tech, the intelligence agencies, because they are all linked. And I'm scared of those people running our country. That terrifies me. We were the party of peace. Now the Democratic Party is the party of war. They're the party that gave.
Dog, we ended the war in Afghanistan. Barack Obama ran on ending the war in Afghanistan. He didn't do it. Donald Trump ran on ending the war in Afghanistan. He didn't do it. Joe Biden ended the war in Afghanistan within like 5 months of being president. Give me a break.
Gave us Ukraine. They're the party now that is threatening to put missiles into Russia, to the Kremlin, to mainland Russia.
Based?
And start World War III. My uncle did everything in his power to avert.
Have you considered asking Vladimir Putin to not invade sovereign neighboring countries? Have you considered asking Vladimir Putin to not try to expand his borders?
A conflict with Russia, including doing something nobody ever did, but to have.
Russia does not want the smoke, okay? They do not want this smoke. We're not going to get into World War III with Russia. Say what you will about nuclear proliferation, but the doctrine of mutually assured destruction is pretty effective.
Direct contact with Khrushchev. They exchanged 26 personal letters. My uncle put a hotline in the White House so he could talk directly to Khrushchev. In the White House today, nobody's talking to Putin. Nobody's talking to the Russians. Nobody's listening to what they're saying about the red lines that we are creating.
Oh my God. God. And now Trump said something similar a few days ago at a rally. But, you know, there he is. He's just coming out and saying it. The United States forced Russia to invade Ukraine. We crossed their red lines and then forced Russia to invade Ukraine with the intention of marching all the way to Kyiv. We forced them to do it.
And it's really, they brought us down.
When you had Vladimir Putin himself giving an interview with Tucker Carlson and ranting, literally ranting for 50 minutes about like multi-century justification to steal territory from Ukraine because historically, well, it belonged to Russia.
Out to the brink of nuclear war. We're closer to nuclear war than any time that we've been since 1962.
You know what I think escalates the risk of nuclear war? Just allowing someone like Vladimir Putin to just invade whatever country he wants. Just let that go on for decades and decades and decades. No consequences, you know, no kind of international intervention to constrain his expansionist goals. Just let him do that over and over and over again in Georgia and Ukraine, Crimea. Just let him do it over and over and over again.
And it's terrifying for me, the leadership in the White House. If there is a nuclear exchange, 5 billion people will die. A full-blown nuclear exchange with Russia and China would be.
Yeah, let's reelect the guy who got into a public dick measuring contest on Twitter with Kim Jong-un. He's really the guy that's going to take the temperature down, guys. The guy who just today threatened to bomb Iran to smithereens. Yeah, he's the guy.
The World War III would be over in 73 minutes, and 5 billion people around the world would die. And, you know, all of the worries about climate.
I will attack them with fire and fury the world has never seen. My bombs are bigger. My button is bigger. My red button is bigger than yours.
And everything else are dwarfed.
You're wrong, Hutch. Diplomacy was rejected. NATO is a threat. Ukraine can't beat Russia. So unless you want to send American troops, shush. I mean, pretty sure Ukraine has straight up taken Russian territory. Okay, so they seem to be pretty scrappy. It seems to be the case that when we arm them with the weapons that they need to conduct this war, they actually do a pretty good job. They've decimated Russia's army, and now they have set up shop in Kursk, in a southern region of Russia. They pushed into Russian territory. When you say Ukraine is a threat, what do you mean? What do you mean Ukraine is a threat? Can you tell me a single time that NATO invaded a sovereign country to try to expand their own borders? Has that ever happened? No, it's never happened.
Are the worries of nuclear war, and they have us right at the brink. So it's a different party, and we've had this extraordinary inversion now, and this is now the party of the values that I cherish.
I mean, that's insane. The only conclusion I could jump to is that you just never had any foundational principles to begin with.